we're going to stick with that. Storm de la Verre, who started out working for Ringling Brothers. Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm going to say the fact that Ringling Brothers hired this lesbian,
first of all, what?
Black woman.
I'm sorry.
And not as domestic help. They hired her to be in the show, and she was a horse jumper. Mm-hmm. Or whatever. You know what I mean. She would ride on the backs of the horses and do tricks with the horses or whatever. Yeah. Well, then, from 1955 to 1969, she toured the black theater circuit, not the queer circuit, but specifically the black theater circuit, as a drag king and an MC for a show. And I was like, what?
Girl, what?
So the shows at that point had queer folk, openly queer folk doing the show. I love that.
No,
I mean, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And after she ended her career performing, she kept working in the queer community. She worked at different bars as a bouncer. She also was part of different street movements where they were like neighborhood watch things, but where they took to the streets for protests. Okay. She was a part of it up until the end of her life. Okay. And she was old as hell when she died.
Yeah.
I mean, she was born in 1920, died in 2014. She was 96. Right?
She was math.
Is that the math? Mm-hmm. Math is hard.
She was the math age, and I don't know math. So
right, it was like way late into double digits.
She was under 100, but over 1. So she was an age.
Mm-hmm. But it made me think, reading about her life story, which I loved, and I was like, you go, Storm. Mm-hmm. Love that. Love that for you, that you actually toured a real live theater circuit.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
But it made me remember a story that I hadn't thought about in many years. When I first started entertaining, one of my friends asked me if I wanted to do this gig. And I was like, no. If there's money involved, I'm there.
Ew,
because girl needs some money.
Sure.
Because she broke, because she was young. Anyhow, and she's like, yeah, we're going to perform at this supper club. And I was like,
girl, what?
Okay, I'm from the country. I don't even know what a supper club is. That where you eat your supper and I don't know. So I was like, sure, I'd love to. Sure. I would love to. And she told me, do whatever you want. You're going to do, I want to say it's like 2 or 3 numbers, whatever. And this other queen, who I sometimes worked with, loved her dearly, amazing performer. She came to me one night and she said, so I understand you're going to be doing the gig at the supper club. And I was like, oh yeah, I know. How fun is that going to be? And she says, listen, this club is going to be mostly black people. And I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And she's like, and you do mostly black music. And I was like, so far I'm with you, but I'm not sure where you're going.
Right.
And she said, well, they're not going to want to see a white girl doing black music. And I was like, oh. Okay, well, you would know better than I, as a black woman.
Sure.
You would know better than I.
Yeah.
And you've been performing longer than I, so I'm going to trust you. Well, I shouldn't have trusted you. Because it's hard for me to perform music that I don't really feel in my soul. But whatever. So I went to the club. I did what she requested. I did the white songs that, were in my repertoire and whatever. And honest to God, the audience looked at me like,
why the hell are you here?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, they were polite. Mm-hmm. They applauded. But no, it was not good. And so, amazingly enough, my friend asked me to do it a second time. And amazingly enough, I said yes after my really poor reception the first time. But the second time, I was like, I'm going to do me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to perform my song. And they loved me.
Right.
So that was pretty awesome. But I also learned what a supper club was. This was a private club that sat over the top of another business, but it had been there for, I don't know, forever.
150 years.
And it was just a big
room.
It looked kind of like a restaurant.
Okay.
But they would have people performing while they ate dinner. And
girl, it's a dinner theater, honey.
Dinner theater,
yes,
right.
Ma'am.
But This is old school. They called it a supper club.
Oh, okay. Because dinner theater is so new.
Dinner theater has only been dead for like 20 or so years. Whereas this, it was the early 80s.
Right.
So,
bad time.
Whatever. Anyway. But it just made me think of that story. And I was like,
how funny.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go back to you. It's your turn.
Okay. The second woman we should know, everyone should know, is Audrey Lorde.
Ooh, I know who Audrey Lorde is.
Okay, perfect. She was a writer and a feminist, a womanist, librarian, and civil rights activist. She described herself as like black, lesbian, mother, warrior, poet, which I think is great.
What is a womanist as opposed to a feminist?
So I'm gonna have to look that up because in one of my classes we talked about a womanist. Oops, maybe if I could spell.
Again,
girl, math is hard. The term womanist was coined by Alice Walker, a black feminist of feminist color committed to the survival and wholeness of an entire people, male and female, not separatist except periodically for health.
Okay.
Cool. So, anyway, so Audrey Lorde, great person. Let's see. She embodied, before intersectionality was like coined in the 90s, she talked a lot about how, the intersections of people's identities. She wrote extensively about dismantling racist, homophobic, and sexist structures as a black woman, lesbian, mother. You know what I mean? Her intersections are huge. One of her most famous works, which I also had to read for class, and you should read the whole thing. It's called The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House from 1979. There's a little excerpt. I'm just going to read it to you. It says, "It is learning how to take our differences and make them strengths. For the Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. They may allow us to temporarily to beat him at his own game, but they'll never enable us to bring about genuine change. At this fact, it is only threatening to those women who still define the Master's house as their only source of support. What does it mean when the tools of a racist patriarchy are used to examine the fruits of that same patriarchy?" She was just very intelligent and very moving. So you should look up her books. One of her books that I've read, which is amazing, is called Sister Outsider. And it just focuses on like what it means for her identity to be black, a woman, a lesbian, a poet, an activist, a cancer survivor, a mother, all of the things. So it's her, and a feminist. So it really is her perspective as someone who's been othered by like every category and what it means for her as navigating the world. It's really good that you should read Sister Outsider. Everyone should read it. But she's also written 5,000 books, So check her out. She's also a really, really, really prolific writer.
When you were talking about your last person, one of the words that you used or terms that not everyone may know is TERF. Because you were talking about intersectionality and feminism, including all women, and that the TERF movement, I would say, is relatively new.
I would say so.
As an actual movement.
Yeah.
TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist.
Right.
Yeah?
Which is just a very long, fancy name for we don't like trans women. That's it.
Well, right. And I would say probably the most famous right now would be J.K. Rowling.
Yep.
Who very publicly, she did it via Twitter, right? Was supporting some woman who was saying that basically trans women aren't women. And J.K. Rowling not only came out and said, yay to this woman.
Right.
Love her. She's great. And when she was checked for that and said, listen, this makes it sound like you're agreeing with her that trans women aren't real women. And she doubled and tripled down and was like, yeah, and she's
like,
right.
No, but what I said was trans women aren't women.
Right. In case it was unclear, and it was, I was heartbroken because,
it is very
I love Harry Potter.
Girl,
I've read all the books. I've seen all the movies.
I know.
I do. But the thought that this woman, who has done amazing things, she's given millions of dollars to charity. She's helped, women in different situations. But really, You're
I
going
know.
to say something so ugly and hateful.
Problematic.
And so ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Her whole, you know, a woman is someone who's born with this DNA and this body and this, that's it.
And
that's
this genitalia. Like,
Right.
let's keep it real. People like that are ignorant and they focus on, like, just biology, which is not how any of this works.
No.
Because biology, there's so many differentiations within biology that people are not born. Everyone's always like XX, XY, but there's so many variations that
You
people
know, I
get
just
stuck
learned
on.
that the other day.
Did
I mean,
you?
not that, right? The XX and XY, I know.
Yeah.
Because some man,
Some man.
it's always some man, on the TikTok was all, well, if you're a woman, you have to have, you know, it's like, no, you don't. And the woman who he said it to said, well, listen, as a doctor, I may know a thing or two,
One or two.
probably been to school a little bit,
Right.
to tell you that there are so many variations of
Yeah.
chromosomes that doesn't mean you're not a man, you're not a woman, you are, you know, it's like it
Yeah.
could mean any number of things, and it's not as cut and dried as you might think.
Right. Well, and that's why people say, like, it's a construction, right? Like, that's why your gender, you can, your sex, yes, you can be born whatever, right? They can label you whatever you want, but your gender is, like, what you feel, what you believe you are, what you know you are. It doesn't have to match up with your sex, right?
Right.
But it's something, if we didn't have, like, male and female, if we never put that much emphasis on the binary, no one would give a shit whether or not, you know what I mean, there were trans men or trans women. It wouldn't be an issue. But the fact of the matter is, we put so much emphasis on man, woman.
Right. Well, and when I first learned the whole kind of idea of gender being a construct,
Yeah, I'm confused.
I'm not going to lie, I had trouble wrapping my mind around it. Because I kept thinking, well, how is that you have... But then when I started thinking, it's all what we put on it. Like women, you know, women have boobs. I know men with boobs.
Yeah, me too.
Women have long hair. Women have, you know, women, whatever it is, you know, it's like all of the things.
It's
Women
not
like to
real.
wear dresses.
No.
Right? Okay? Whatever the thing is, whatever, it's like those are all things that we have put
Yes,
on it.
exactly.
And so as a mom,
Take that away.
when my children were little, I was thinking about, because one of my children asked me, it's like how to explain what is a boy and what is a girl. And it's like, and everything I came up with was like, nope. So a boy is nope. And everything that came to my mouth, and I didn't say them out loud. I was processing that question.
Yeah.
Finally, my answer was, a boy is someone who identifies as a boy.
Hey,
That's all you got.
how simplified, but
I
also
mean, it
how
really
true.
is.
How true. Yeah.
It is someone who is like, this is how I choose to identify myself. You know, so it's tricky.
Yeah.
You know, we have a book, and I know I'm getting so far off topic, but I don't even care. We have a book about where babies come from. We got it when they were very young, started reading to them, and it's the way that it is written is like, okay, to make a baby, you can't start with nothing. You have to have an egg, and you have to have sperm. It does not say you have to have a man and a woman. It does not say only a woman can make a baby.
I love that.
It says you have to have an egg. And then it says, and typically an egg, you know, is carried in the uterus. Not all bodies have uteruses.
I love it.
And a sperm, you know, comes from here, and not all bodies have those. And nowhere in it is like a man, you know, produces the sperm and a woman produces the egg and blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, and my children, now they know a man who's had a baby. And what's cool to me is that didn't even mess them up. They were just like, oh,
Okay.
all right. Because they've grown up, again, surrounded by queer people of color, you know, different, so different than how we grew up, that they were just like, oh,
Normal.
He had a baby?
This is so regular. Boring. How boring for you.
I mean, I think the only real question was, wait, if he had a baby, how'd that baby come out? And I was like, well, I wasn't in the delivery room, so I don't know if it was C-section or not. I don't know. and that is not my business.
Uh-huh.
I realize that has usually never stopped me from asking, it not being my business, because I'm a nosy peasy. But I did not ask. But I was like, I'm sure it was one of the kind of natural ways.
It was
that babies are
probably
born.
witchcraft and maybe